The evening was unseasonably cool as Ethan traipsed through the dense underbrush on the outskirts of his hometown. His camera hung loosely around his neck, swinging slightly with each step. He had heard stories about strange lights seen in these woods at night, and, as a photographer with a penchant for the unexplained, he couldn't resist the opportunity. Suddenly, a soft rustle to his left caught his attention. He paused, crouching low, his breath fogged in the chilly air as he waited. After a moment of silence, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Jake, Ethan's old-school friend and fellow enthusiast of the mysterious. "Jake, what are you doing here?" Ethan whispered, his voice laced with both surprise and intrigue. Jake, equipped with a flashlight and a backpack that looked overly stuffed for a simple night walk, grinned. "I could ask you the same, Ethan. Chasing shadows again?" Ethan nodded, a smirk playing on his lips. "You know it. I heard about the lights. Couldn't stay away. What's in the bag?" "Just some gear, in case we find something interesting." Jake patted his backpack, his eyes gleaming with excitement. The two men resumed walking, their steps muffled by the soft earth beneath their feet. They talked about old times, their conversation filled with laughter and shared memories. As they reached a clearing, the air around them began to buzz with an electric charge, raising the hairs on their arms. "Did you feel that?" Ethan asked, stopping in his tracks. "Yeah, something's off," Jake agreed, scanning the area with his flashlight. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the darkness, landing on a peculiar metallic object partially hidden under the foliage. Ethan approached it cautiously, camera ready. "What is that?" "Looks like nothing I've ever seen." Jake joined him, his curiosity overriding caution. "It's too symmetrical to be natural. Man-made or, not." As they inspected the object, a sharp noise pierced the night, and the ground beneath them trembled slightly. The friends exchanged a look of alarm just as several figures appeared around them, emerging silently from the woods. The figures were slender and tall, their skin reflecting the moonlight in an unnatural way. "Ethan, Jake." One of the figures spoke, their voice calm yet carrying an authoritative tone. "We mean no harm. We are just observers." Ethan kept his camera pointed at the figure, while Jake stepped forward slightly, his body tense. "Observers? From where? Why here? Our home is not of your Earth. We came to study, to understand," the alien replied, its eyes, too large and too bright, fixed intently on the two men. Jake's fascination was palpable. "You're actual aliens? It's incredible." Ethan, still snapping photos, finally spoke. "What do you want to understand about us?" "Your kind thrives in ways unexpected, in ways many would not predict. We seek to learn these aspects," the alien explained, its gaze shifting between Ethan and Jake. "And you just watch? What have you learned so far?" Ethan asked, lowering his camera slightly. "That humans are complex, capable of great adaptability and creativity." Another alien joined in the conversation. The dialogue continued, the initial shock giving way to a strange sort of camaraderie as they exchanged questions and answers. Ethan and Jake learned about the aliens' culture, their technology, and their peaceful mission. In return, they offered insights into human behavior, our art, and the chaotic beauty of earthly existence. As the night deepened, an understanding was reached. The aliens would observe, but not interfere. Ethan and Jake, for their part, felt a responsibility to keep this encounter secret, to protect these peaceful visitors and perhaps, in doing so, something greater than themselves. As they parted ways, the alien leader turned back once more. "We will watch and learn. Humanity intrigues us deeply." With the aliens' final words hanging in the air, Ethan and Jake walked back through the woods, their minds racing with the possibilities of what had just occurred. They knew life would never be the same again. The camera around Ethan's neck contained more than just pictures. It held a new understanding, a secret that would bond the two friends forever. Back in Ethan's cozy, cluttered living room, the two men sat across from each other, each nursing a mug of strong coffee. The events of the previous night seemed surreal in the light of day, yet the vivid images on Ethan's camera served as undeniable proof. "So, what do we do now?" Jake asked, breaking the silence. He stared into his coffee, as if the answers might be found in its dark swirls. Ethan leaned back, tapping his fingers on the side of his chair. First, we figure out if they're still out there. If they are, we need to understand what exactly they want to learn about us. Jake nodded slowly. And if they're not just peaceful observers? I mean, they seemed friendly, but who knows? That's why we go back tonight. If they're still there, maybe we can talk more. Find out what's really going on. The decision made, the rest of the day dragged by. Ethan tried to edit some photos for a local gallery exhibition, but found himself unable to focus. His mind kept drifting back to the metallic object and the otherworldly figures. Jake spent the day on forums dedicated to extraterrestrial encounters, not posting anything but searching for anyone else who might have experienced something similar. As night fell, they equipped themselves with more robust gear, night vision goggles, additional cameras, and even a digital recorder for capturing any verbal exchanges. The forest welcomed them with familiar sounds and the rustle of nocturnal creatures, but tonight, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. They reached the clearing where they had encountered the aliens. Everything was quiet. Too quiet, perhaps. Think they knew we'd come back? Jake whispered, scanning the area with his night vision goggles. Maybe. Or maybe they're watching us right now, Ethan replied, his voice low. Just then, a soft, melodic voice filled the air. You have returned. This is good. Ethan and Jake spun around to see the alien leader, the same one who had spoken to them the night before, standing a few meters away. It was accompanied by two others, slightly smaller in stature. We have, Ethan said, stepping forward. We want to understand more about you, why you're here. The leader tilted its head, considering his words. Curiosity is a trait we find admirable in humans. We are here to learn about your adaptability, creativity, and what you call spirit. Jake looked over at Ethan, eyebrows raised. Spirit? Yes, the alien continued. The essence of what makes you strive, survive, and sometimes thrive in conditions others would find difficult. Ethan thought for a moment. You want to know about our struggles? In part, another alien added. We observe many species. Humans are unique in your emotional depth and your chaotic ways of solving problems. So, you don't want to harm us? Jake asked, a note of skepticism in his tone. No harm, the leader affirmed. We seek only knowledge. Ethan decided to test their intentions. If it's knowledge you want, we can share with you. But we also have conditions. No interference with our lives or our planet. The aliens consulted among themselves in a series of musical tones before responding. Agreed. We will learn from what you choose to share. Over the next few hours, Ethan and Jake talked about human history, art, technology, and even played some music for their new acquaintances. The aliens, in turn, shared glimpses of their technology and explained their peaceful exploration of the cosmos. As the night ended, a bond of mutual curiosity and respect had been established. The aliens promised to remain discreet observers, and Ethan and Jake agreed to return with more to share, hopeful that this strange friendship might benefit all involved. Walking back through the woods, Jake chuckled softly. You realize we're basically alien diplomats now, right? Ethan grinned, the weight of their secret a strange new responsibility. Yeah, let's just hope we're good at it. In the following weeks, Ethan and Jake established a routine of nightly visits to the clearing. Each meeting expanded their understanding of the visitors from another world, just as it expanded the aliens' understanding of humanity. The aliens, whom Ethan had started to refer to collectively as the observers, displayed an insatiable curiosity about every facet of human life. On one such evening, as the late summer crickets chirped their twilight songs, Ethan brought an array of books and gadgets, spread out like a bizarre flea market under the stars. Tonight's theme is human innovation, Ethan announced as the observers materialized silently at the edge of the clearing. From the wheel to the smartphone, one of the observers, who had introduced itself as Kale, moved forward with an elegant glide. Your progress is rapid. From simple tools to digital technologies in mere millennia. It is impressive. Jake, who had been setting up a small projector, chuckled. Wait till you see this. He clicked a button, and the dark trees around them lit up with images of human achievements, pyramids, skyscrapers, space shuttles. As images flickered, Ethan narrated. Each invention solved a problem or answered a question. That's what drives us. Necessity, curiosity, sometimes just sheer stubbornness. Kale tilted its head, absorbing the information. And what drives your creativity? Is it communal or solitary? It can be both, Jake replied, switching the projector to display famous artworks. Some of us create in solitude, others thrive in collaboration. The discussion turned to art, and Ethan played music from various eras and cultures. Each piece evoked different emotions and reactions from the observers, who were fascinated by the concept of music as an expression of human emotion. Do you have music? Ethan asked. We have forms of harmony, responded another observer named Tali, but nothing so diverse. Our expressions are more uniform. The night grew deep, and the conversation drifted to literature. Ethan read excerpts from classic novels and poems, translating not just the words but the emotions and the human condition they represented. As he read a particularly moving passage, Kale responded, Your words capture pain, love, joy, despair. Do you find catharsis in these expressions? Absolutely, Ethan said. Art helps us deal with our emotions and the chaos around us. It helps us feel connected, understood. The observers were silent for a moment, and Jake sensed the depth of their contemplation. What about you? What do you feel? We are learning to understand, Tali replied. Before this, we did not fully recognize the depth of feeling. The night ended with a promise to explore human emotions further. Ethan and Jake packed up, and as they prepared to leave, Kale spoke again. Your chaos is not just a state of disorder. It is a source of beauty, growth, innovation. It is more profound than we anticipated. Smiling, Ethan looked over at Jake. Wait till we introduce them to sports next week. Jake laughed. Yeah, if they think our art is chaotic, wait until they see a football game. As they walked back, the weight of their exchanges with the observers felt significant. They were not just sharing knowledge, but potentially shaping how an alien culture understood an entire species. It was both an exhilarating and daunting thought. Think we're making a difference? Jake asked, looking up at the stars. In more ways than one, Ethan replied. At least I hope so. As autumn rolled in, bringing with it the crisp, cool evenings and the rustling of leaves underfoot, Ethan and Jake found themselves drawn even more into their nightly meetings with the observers. The curiosity was mutual, and each session was filled with eager anticipation from both sides. This evening, they decided to introduce the observers to the concept of sports, setting up a small demonstration area in the clearing with equipment for soccer and baseball. As they unpacked, Kale and Tali appeared, accompanied by a new observer, Zahn, who was apparently keen on understanding human recreational activities. Jake kicked a soccer ball towards Ethan, who trapped it expertly under his foot. Sports are a huge part of human culture. They're more than just games. They teach teamwork, discipline, and yes, they're a big outlet for emotions. Ethan passed the ball back to Jake with a smile. They also stir quite the passion. Whether you're playing or just watching, Zahn stepped forward, its movements graceful and curious. May we attempt? Of course, Ethan said, gesturing invitingly towards the soccer ball. Just try kicking it around to get a feel for it. The observers took turns, awkwardly at first, but with growing competence, mimicking the movements they saw from Jake and Ethan. Laughter, a human sound, filled the air, blending with the melodic tones of the observers' amusement. After a while, Ethan set up a baseball tee, demonstrating how to swing a bat. The concept of hitting a stationary object seemed to perplex the observers more than the soccer ball. Tali took the bat, handling it with tentative care, then swung, missing the ball entirely but stirring up a cloud of laughter. Jake clapped encouragingly. It's not just about hitting it hard, but also about timing and technique. Your games require physical skills enhanced by practice, Kale noted, taking the bat and managing a decent hit. Is this also a form of learning for you? Definitely, Ethan replied. Sports can be about personal improvement as much as about competition. We learn about our limits, how to exceed them, and how to work with others. The night progressed with more attempts and more discussions. Jake introduced basic strategies of each game, explaining how each role on a team was vital, how each player contributed to the whole. As in your society, everyone has a role, but the outcomes are unpredictable. This unpredictability is celebrated in your culture, Zahn observed, slowly understanding the appeal of sports. Yes, it's the thrill of not knowing and seeing how things unfold, Jake agreed. It mirrors life in many ways. As the session came to an end, Ethan and Jake sat down with the observers, sharing a late-night snack they had brought along. Another human tradition. Tali, who had been quiet, spoke up. Your willingness to embrace the unknown, to find joy in it, is very enlightening. Ethan smiled, handing out a bag of chips. We find joy in many places. Sometimes in winning, sometimes just in playing the game. Or in sharing a meal, Jake added, opening the chips. The observers watched, their interest piqued by this simple human ritual. Kale accepted the offered snack, trying it with a hint of hesitation before the group shared a look of surprise and pleasure. This sharing, it is a bond for you? Zahn asked. It is, Ethan confirmed. Sharing food is a way of bringing people together, building trust and friendship. As the night wound down and the observers prepared to depart, the air was thick with mutual respect and understanding. They had come seeking knowledge of human activities and left with insights into human emotions and social bonds. Walking back home, Ethan mused aloud. Do you think they ever expected to have fun with us? Jake laughed, throwing an arm around Ethan's shoulders. I doubt it, but I'm glad they did. Feels like we're all learning more than we bargained for. Yeah, Ethan agreed, looking back at the clearing that had become their classroom under the stars. It's turning out to be quite the adventure. Under the silver glow of the autumn moon, Ethan and Jake returned to the clearing, this time carrying not sports equipment or gadgets, but instruments, a guitar and a violin. Tonight, they planned to delve deeper into the emotional and expressive nature of humanity through music and personal stories. As they set up, the observers materialized, their figures becoming more familiar and less otherworldly with each visit. Zahn, Kale, and Tali seemed intrigued by the instruments, their eyes reflecting the soft moonlight. Ethan picked up the guitar, tuning it gently. Music, he began, is one of the most direct ways we express and evoke emotions. It transcends language and culture. Jake, handling the violin, nodded in agreement. Each note, each melody can represent feelings, happiness, sorrow, excitement, peace. It's universal. Zahn stepped forward, its voice filled with curiosity. May we experience this communication? Absolutely, Ethan replied, smiling warmly. He began with a simple, soft melody, fingers strumming the guitar strings smoothly, the music floating through the cool night air. Jake joined in, his violin complementing the guitar's rhythm, the sounds mingling and soaring through the clearing. The music was melancholic yet beautiful, stirring emotions even in the silent, watching aliens. As the last note lingered, Tali spoke. This sadness and beauty together. It is very moving. It's called melancholy, Jake explained. It's a complex emotion, a mix of feeling sad and finding beauty in that sadness. Kale, always the inquisitive one, asked, do all humans feel this when they hear such music? Not everyone, but many do, Ethan answered. Music connects with us, resonating with our personal experiences and memories. Encouraged by the observer's genuine interest, Ethan shared a personal story related to the music. This song, he said, his voice soft, was played at my father's funeral. It was a tough time, but the music brought comfort, made it easier to cope with the loss. The observers listened intently, processing the depth of human emotion tied to melodies. We do not experience loss in the same way, Zahn admitted. But understanding this helps us grasp the complexity of your emotions. Wanting to shift the mood, Jake suggested. Let's try something a bit lighter. He started a lively tune, the notes quick and playful. The atmosphere changed as the music invited toe-tapping and lightheartedness. Ethan looked around, his eyes bright. Music can lift spirits too. It's not all about sadness. It's about balance, about the spectrum of what we feel. As the more upbeat music filled the air, The observers seemed to absorb not just the sound but the shift in energy. Tali even mimicked the tapping, a rhythmic movement that was surprisingly in sync. You use music to share and to heal, Tali observed, a note of wonder in its voice. Yes, and to connect, Ethan added. It binds us together, during good times and bad. As the night progressed, they explored more songs, more stories. The observers shared more about their ways of connection, which were more cerebral but beginning to incorporate the emotional lessons they were learning from humans. Before parting, Kale expressed a sentiment that had been forming since their first meeting. Your world is rich with emotions. We are beginning to feel more than we ever thought possible. Ethan and Jake exchanged a look, a mix of pride and satisfaction in their roles as accidental ambassadors. We're glad to hear that, Jake said. Feelings are what make life vivid. Walking back through the quiet woods, Ethan reflected aloud. Tonight was different. We didn't just share knowledge. We shared what makes us human on a deeper level. Yeah, Jake agreed, his voice thoughtful. And maybe we're helping them discover a bit of their own humanity, if that makes sense. It does, Ethan said, looking up at the stars. It really does. As the nights grew colder and the leaves began to turn, Ethan and Jake's encounters with the observers continued to deepen in understanding and friendship. However, unknown to them, not all eyes watching were friendly or merely curious. One chilly evening, as they prepared for another meeting in the clearing, Jake sensed something different, a slight shift in the air, a tension that hadn't been there before. Do you feel that? Jake whispered to Ethan as they approached their usual spot, his voice low, almost drowned out by the rustling leaves. Ethan paused, looking around. Yeah, it's like we're being watched by someone else. Not the observers. They proceeded with caution, setting up their equipment but constantly scanning the dark woods. As they waited, the usual welcoming party of observers didn't appear. Minutes ticked by, the silence growing heavier. Finally, Zahn emerged from the shadows alone, its expression more somber than usual. We need to be cautious tonight, Zahn spoke in a hushed tone as it approached them. There are others from our kind who do not agree with this exchange. They believe it risks exposing our presence to humanity at large. Jake frowned, his hands clenching slightly. Are we in danger? Not immediate, but caution is advised, Zahn replied. They are observers like us, but with a different mandate. They observe to assess threats, not to learn or make connections. Ethan's face hardened with resolve. What can we do? We're not stopping now. Not when we've come this far. Zahn looked at each of them, its eyes conveying a seriousness they had not seen before. We must meet less frequently, perhaps, and in different locations. Your safety is paramount to us. The discussion that followed was tense, with Ethan and Jake expressing their determination to continue but agreeing to the need for discretion. Let's set up a schedule and a system for communication, Ethan suggested. If they're watching, we'll need to be unpredictable. Agreed. Zahn nodded. We will also take measures on our side to protect this project. The rest of the night was spent not in cultural exchange, but in planning. They discussed signals, coded messages, and contingency plans, a far cry from the rich cultural interactions of previous nights. As they wrapped up, Jake approached Zahn, his expression serious. Zahn, why do they see us as a threat? We're just sharing stories and music. Zahn paused before answering. Fear of the unknown. Even among my kind, it is a powerful motivator. They fear that your unpredictability and emotional depth are not controllable. Ethan scoffed lightly, a bitter smile on his lips. That's what makes us human. The chaos, the emotions. Yes, and it is exactly why we find you so remarkable, Zahn replied, its voice carrying a hint of admiration. Do not worry. We will ensure this continues. Your world has much to teach us, perhaps even about ourselves. With a final nod, Zahn disappeared into the darkness, leaving Ethan and Jake alone in the clearing. Walking back, Jake couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. Think this will change things? It has to, Ethan responded, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. But it's not going to stop us. We adapt, remember? It's what we do. Yeah, Jake agreed, a determined edge to his voice. We adapt, and we keep going. no matter what. Their pact, made under the starlit sky, was a commitment to continue their unlikely diplomacy, regardless of the risks. They knew the value of what was being shared, and neither was ready to give it up. The new meeting place was deeper in the woods, a secluded spot by a forgotten stream where the rustle of the water could cover their voices. Ethan and Jake arrived early, their breaths visible in the cold air, each step deliberate to avoid leaving obvious tracks. As they set up, Ethan glanced around, the weight of their secret meetings growing heavier. You think this will throw off those other observers? Jake, checking a small device for any unwanted signals, nodded. It should. Plus, this scrambler will help mask our electronic footprint. We're ghosts tonight. The crisp air filled with the low murmur of the stream as they waited. After a tense half-hour, Zahn appeared, its form blending with the night shadows. This is a good choice. We are undetected. Let's keep it quick, then, Ethan said, unpacking a small object covered by cloth. I brought something special tonight. Curious, Zahn watched as Ethan unveiled a small, antique music box. Winding it up, he let the delicate, plinking melody fill the air. Music boxes were once a way to enjoy music privately, a personal experience not shared with masses. A piece of chaos, ordered and contained, Zahn absorbed the sound, its head tilted. A beautiful metaphor for humanity. Jake, meanwhile, set up a holographic projector, a new tech gadget he'd been eager to test. Let's show you something else about human creativity. The device flickered to life, displaying a 3D model of the solar system. We explore, we question, and we dream. This is our solar system, and we've sent probes to almost every planet here. As the model rotated, Zahn reached out, its hand passing through the hologram of Mars. You seek to understand your place in the universe. Exactly, Ethan said, joining Jake at the projector. And despite the dangers, we push forward. Curiosity is a powerful drive. The discussion turned from space exploration to human aspirations, each story and explanation layered with the complexities of human endeavor and the chaotic paths they often took. We learn, we adapt, and sometimes, we leap before we look, Jake explained with a grin. Zahn considered this, then said, Your chaos leads to creativity, to solutions and advancements. We observe, we calculate, but perhaps we are too cautious. Ethan smiled, looking at the music box and then the stars visible through the tree canopy. There's a place for caution, but without some risk, some chaos, there's no movement forward. As the meeting drew to a close, Zahn hesitated. This exchange has been invaluable. We will convey the essence of what we have learned tonight about your drive and creativity. It is persuasive, powerful. Jake packed up the projector, his movements slow, thoughtful. It's more than just survival for us. It's about thriving, about making something lasting, even in the face of uncertainty. And that is what we will report back, Zahn confirmed. The value of your unpredictability, your chaos. Ethan and Jake nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and success. Their efforts to share the essence of humanity seemed to be reshaping the observer's approach. As they made their way back through the woods, the weight of their discussions lingered. They were not just protecting themselves and their new friends. They were advocating for their entire species in a cosmic dialogue. Think they'll really get it? Jake asked as they reached the road. Ethan paused, looking back at the shadowed forest. I think they're beginning to. And maybe that'll make all the difference. Their path back to town was quiet, reflective, each man considering the future, both immediate and distant. What they were part of was bigger than either had imagined. A bridge between worlds built on shared knowledge and mutual respect, constructed in the chaos of human experience. The air was brisk, hinting at the onset of winter as Ethan and Jake made their way to the clearing for what they sensed might be the last of their meetings. The leaves crunched under their feet, a constant reminder of the passage of time and the changes it brought. When they arrived, Zahn was already there, accompanied by Kale and Tali. The atmosphere was solemn, the usual greetings subdued. We have reached a conclusion, Zahn began, its voice steady but tinged with a new depth of emotion. Our time observing directly must come to an end. The risk of interference has grown too great. Ethan's heart sank, but he nodded, understanding the stakes. We figured it might come to this. What happens now? Our mission will evolve, Kale explained. Based on our reports, our leaders see value in what we have learned from humanity. We will continue our observations from afar and use the insights to perhaps alter our approach to other civilizations. Jake looked between the observers, a mix of disappointment and pride in his eyes. So, what we've shared has made a difference. Significantly, Tali responded. Your creativity, your capacity for emotional depth, and your chaotic paths to solutions have challenged many of our preconceptions. Zahn stepped forward, extending a hand, an unmistakably human gesture they had picked up. Ethan accepted it, feeling the strange but gentle grip. Your influence will extend beyond what you can imagine. You have changed us, and you've changed us, Jake added. Made us see our own culture a bit differently through your eyes. The group shared a quiet moment, the significance of their exchange hanging heavily in the cool air. Before we go, Ethan said, pulling out his camera, one last picture? For us to remember? The observers consented, and they gathered, a strange but harmonious group framed against the backdrop of the earthly woods. The camera's flash pierced the twilight, capturing the moment. As they prepared to part, Kale voiced a lingering thought. Humanity thrives on chaos, yes, but there is a strength in that which is admirable. You will rise again and again, a quality we will not forget. Ethan smiled, touched by the acknowledgement. And you'll always be a part of that story now. The observers faded into the shadows from which they had come, leaving Ethan and Jake alone in the silence of the clearing. The two men stood there for a long time, neither wanting to be the first to break the reverent stillness. Finally, Jake spoke. You think we'll ever see them again? Ethan looked up at the stars, considering. Maybe, in some way or another. But what matters is what we do next, how we continue what we've started here. As they walked back, their conversation turned to plans for sharing their experiences. They discussed writing articles, maybe even a book, and speaking at conferences. The world needed to understand what had been learned, not just about the observers, but about humanity's potential when viewed through an unexpected lens. We've got a lot of work ahead, Jake said, his voice filled with a newfound determination. Yeah, Ethan agreed, his step light with purpose. Let's get to it. After all, it's our chaos that makes us strong. That's our story to tell. And with that, they stepped out of the woods and into the dawn of a new understanding, ready to share their incredible journey, their lessons learned in the embrace of chaos.